I don't want to sound too negative here, but I'm pretty sure that summer 2020 might have ended up being the best quarter of the year. It's certainly seen the most releases that I thought were noteworthy for positive reasons, so hooray for the little things, I guess. And I don't want to jinx myself, but hopefully I'll get to be positive in the fall 2020 video as well. Anyways, without further delay, let's just get on with the video that this is gonna be. I suppose Fall Guys would be a good baseline for releases as a whole, at least on the gaming side of things. Fall Guys was a lot of fun. I'd been wondering for the past couple of years if there would be anything that would come along and reinvigorate the Battle Royale genre with its ever-growing complacency and honestly just boring gameplay loops at this point. And here we are. There's actually a lot of things about Fall Guys that, on paper, I'd have thought would make me hate this game, yet somehow the derpy controls and lack of any actual fucking combat gives it this unique and undeniable charm that makes it a great casual pastime. I could see how I would end up playing this game for hours. I mean, I'm not going to, but I can definitely see how it would happen. Essentially, it's just Takeshi's Castle, but with obnoxiously colorful jelly beans, and with the Battle Royale twist coming through the form of 60 confectionery cucks being released onto the obstacle course simultaneously, which is just the most chaotic fucking mess I've ever seen, and well, it's great. There was another game with colorful chili components that got really popular around the same time, but that game came out in 2018, and these videos are more about releases rather than whatever the popular things on Twitch and YouTube are, so we'll just leave it with an honorable mention. I actually really hope that this game's active player base doesn't immediately die out the second it stops getting love from content creators, because it's just a great time, and every now and then I'll have 10 minutes that I need to burn through. I suppose people are still active on PUBG though, so I guess I don't need to worry about it dying anytime soon. After being delayed for an entire quarter due to what I am affectionately referring to as the cough of the bat soup, ReZero made its return to our screens, forcing everyone to wonder, was this really worth a 4-year wait? I would like to say that I was able to answer such a question, but personally I didn't actually get around to watching the first season until about halfway through 2019, so all I can say is that it was definitely worth waiting for a single year. And there's also the benefit of this second season being far better than its predecessor in my eyes, though I also thought the first season was just a mediocre isekai with a little bit of extra edge and slightly less sexual assault, so take that opinion for what you will. It's kinda like the series answered all of my selfish requests for what I wanted to see happen in regards to the characters by simply making Subaru less of a cringy cucklord, even though he still kind of is one, and introducing a waifu that isn't mid, sorry to all the Amelia, Rem, and Beatrice fanboys. Technically, this is only half of the season, with the second half airing in winter 2021, but I think ReZero has developed enough at this point that I'm willing to call it an interesting release, even without it being finished yet. That and winter 2021 is looking fucking stacked, and I don't want to have to talk about this show when there's so many better ones coming out in said season. That being said, ReZero still is really fucking good right now, almost to the point that it's worth it to slog through the first season if you somehow haven't already seen it at this point, though I think that depends on your level of patience, to be completely honest. I don't think I would have picked it back up if I had waited 4 years like a lot of people did. It's for sure worth watching if you've already seen up to this point in the story and are on the fence about continuing, though moving forward I am still undecided about whether or not I'll be keeping up with this series as it's airing or just waiting until it's finished its run. As I'm looking through my list of notable releases of the season, I'm starting to realize that, at least in regard to the games, this might be the most unique combination of titles I've enjoyed in years. At least when breaking it down into 3-month blocks like I'm doing for these videos, Hades is in no way, shape, or form a style of game that I would generally enjoy playing, and the crazy thing is that it's not even here because of weak game releases this summer. It stands on its own 2 feet, head and shoulders above almost everything else to be released so far in the year. It has also provided me with the most fun I've had with a new game when speaking strictly about the mechanics in, I'd say, probably more than 2 years at this point. And I think I'm probably going to go for completing all the story and weapon runs on it. No speedrunning though, because, well, I'm fucking doo-doo at this game and I accepted that very early on, but I want to see everything this world and its characters have to offer. I tend not to prioritize replay value in my enjoyment of video games as much as a lot of other people do, but when I get a game that I genuinely have a hard time setting down, man, It's one of the best feelings. There's still an entire season of game releases to get through after this, but I'm pretty confident I can say that this is most likely a contender for my personal game of the year. All the weapons are fantastic. I absolutely love all of the characters. The boons and upgrade system are so well crafted, giving you complete control over how difficult you want to make your runs, and this is to say nothing of the soundtrack and voice acting or the visual aspects. Hades is just a phenomenally executed roguelike, and a shining example of why you should never let yourself impose limits on the types of titles you're willing to try out. You never know if you're going to find something outside your comfort zone that blows you away. Video games are kind of a cool medium like that after all. I still don't understand why I watched this show every week, but apparently I wasn't alone in doing so because it's still listed in the top 5 releases of summer 2020 on both my anime list and AnyChart. And I'm sure I could take some shit for this opinion, but I also don't really care. Rent-A-Girlfriend is honestly one of the most mid-tier shows I've ever seen. I put it on the same level as Sing Yesterday from 2020 spring season, with the only difference being that instead of having one character that I genuinely adore, there's one character who's pretty likable and a couple others that are nifty, I guess. And while I won't deny that it was beyond entertaining to watch an anime about a guy literally paying someone to be his girlfriend at the same time that simp culture was peaking as a meme, I don't think that makes up for the festival of eye rolls, winces, and irritated groans that this series caused for me. Kazuya is infuriating as a protagonist, to put it mildly. I've seen dense protagonists, I've seen Chad protagonists, I've seen cringe-inducing protagonists, and I've seen beta protagonists. I don't think I've ever seen a cringe-inducing beta Chad in the spotlight, so I guess that was a new experience for me, and I gotta say, I don't like it. There's also the whole issue of Mami-chan, who apparently pissed off most of the community by, being manipulative, I guess, by not wanting to bang their darling hornball. Gotta say, she never inspired anything other than indifference from me. The other 3 lady friends are, of course, the range of likable to nifty that I mentioned earlier. If there was anything that I actually took away from this show, it's that 2020 seems to be the year of having female characters stuck in shows that they're way too good for, and Chizuru, Sumi, and Ruka were no exceptions to this. Hopefully someone pulls a meta recreators move and summons them all into a series that they actually deserve at some point. Fingers crossed for you, ladies. I haven't actually had the chance to play this with any friends yet, but if you have a consistent set of people, I can imagine this will be a fun change of pace to throw into your group's repertoire every now and then. I did play a little bit by myself just because I wanted to see how the mechanics work, and this is an astonishingly well-crafted little title. As of the moment, it seems like the roadmap is well thought out so far as future patches go, and Kinetic Games have been doing a great job in not abandoning the project so far, though it is fairly new as a proper release. Consider this more of a wildcard recommendation than an informed one, but so long as Phasmophobia continues to receive new ghost types and new maps throughout the next couple of years, I can see this being a mainstay for game nights with friends. Man, I'm lonely. If you've ever found yourself wondering, how anime can an anime be before it becomes too anime to be taken seriously? Well, then here's an answer. Decadence is where I draw my limit. Now, Decadence is essentially a Studio Trigger show made by a different studio named Studio Nut, which I think is an objectively fucking hilarious name. Another thing that I find funny in a subjective sense is the reversed opinions between myself and people who tend to stay in Trigger shows. Speaking purely from a personal standpoint, of course, Trigger has never made anything that has exceeded the realms of being good in regard to my taste in anime, yet I loved this show. And for the Trigger fans I know, it's almost universally the opposite sentiment, essentially making it the same as liking different brands of kosher salt, but telling other people that their brand of kosher salt is neither koshery or salty enough. But everyone is entitled to their own opinions and tastes, even if it's fundamentally the same flavors we're discussing. And it's not like I'm outside of that category of hypocrisy when I say that I had a great time watching Natsumi and her jelly belly mentor fight the CG Klaxosaurs. Like, they're made by computers this time, not CGI. Why was this character design so fucking common this season, by the way? There were three fucking IPs with beans in the leading roles. J.K. Rowling would probably be busting a fat transphobic Sheena if she realized how popular birdie bots had gotten again. That's a disgusting mental image, and I'm not sorry that you have to share it with me now. Back to the original point I was trying to make, Decadence is a neat little roller coaster of a seasonal anime, and while it definitely wasn't my favorite series of the summer, I can't honestly say anything else was quite quite as entertaining to watch every week. I also didn't realize until doing a little bit of light research, but this is also apparently only the second full series that Studio Nut has made. The other being Tanya, which is also great in its own right, so I'm pretty excited to see what they do from this point onward. God damn. Ghost of Tsushima is... well, it's fucking pretty. And it's a lot of fun, actually. I'm not the biggest fan of Sucker Punch's previous works as a studio, so I was genuinely delighted that this game really clicked with me. Especially with Nioh 2 earlier this year and Sekiro the year before, making me question if I just can't get into the whole samurai-era Japan thing. Luckily for me, I no longer have to write off an entire setting for games, because this darn thing came up in the Yeezy with all the Yeezys, and that's a stupid fucking joke. But parts of it were just so well made that I couldn't turn down the chance to play it whenever I had the opportunity. And while I do believe that that is a heaping amount of praise, especially when coming from me, and I also really believe the game deserves it, I don't want you to go thinking that it's my choice release of the summer season. There's far too many issues I have with it, ranging from the story being so absurdly unengaging that I actually just watched YouTube videos on my other monitor with the game muted anytime a cutscene would come on, to a shocking amount of the gameplay even. I don't want to give off the impression that the stealth is broken per se. It certainly doesn't make me laugh as much as the sneaking mechanics in other titles like The Last of Us, but everything about it is just so uninspired and par for the course that after the tutorial mission where you first unlock assassination, I honestly never touched it again. There's also a pitfall that pretty much every game with very tight and specific combat has. When you're absolutely nailing the timings and dancing enemy to enemy perfectly, it feels so great that at times you can even forget you're holding a controller, but when things are off, even if it's by just a fraction of a second, it's pretty damn noticeable and at times painful. Ghost of Tsushima does not avoid that pitfall by any stretch of the imagination. Even with these minor gripes, I can't deny that when the game is at its best, it's a truly breathtaking and fluid experience that really encapsulates the best parts of hack and slash combat. So while it's not my favorite game of the season, I think it would be the one title I'd suggest to a majority of people who play games in a more casual way than I do. Okay, so for starters, my fucking feels did not need to be attacked like this. Origairu is a special anime for me, and I really didn't want it to go away, but I'm also glad it got an actual ending, unlike, 90% of anime adaptations that exist. Closure in any form is always a great thing to have for any story that you enjoy, after all. This has actually been the hardest release to think of talking points for, because I have a couple of segments planned for the series and videos not too far down the pipeline, but I'll try my hardest not to trample over those videos for the sake of this one. So yes, as the name of Snafu's third season, Snafu Climax, would suggest, that is very much what this series is. If you'd been keeping up with the series over the past 7 years or so, then this is where all the strings finally tied together, and it was a rather poignant conclusion to everything. Not that there was any doubt it would be as such after the change in tone brought about in the second season, which I personally loved, but I've heard the opposite sentiment from a couple other people I know who really assumed this was going to be a more lighthearted show, probably because the English name in full is My Teen Romantic Comedy Snafu, I suppose. Yet I never really watched this anime as a comedy in the first place. I think even back from the first episode, I always knew that Snafu was trying to execute a far more emotional story than it let on at first glance. And really, there's just too much shit to talk about with this series, and I honestly don't think I'd be able to fit a single part of it into the remaining time I have left in this segment, but expect me to delve slightly deeper into it soon. It is a really fantastic conclusion to the series, though. Now, this came as quite a shock to me, but I guess all it took to get me to put an honest effort into playing an RTS game was really cool aesthetic and art choices. Because apparently I'm basic as fuck. Other Side has been my favorite game to play over the last couple of months, which is a fact I find concerning because I really really don't want to see myself get sucked into the time sink that is turn-based tactics gaming. I haven't even actually finished the game as I'm recording this, but I can say with certainty that I will be. At the moment, I think Other Side will end up being a niche game that I only play every couple of weeks or couple of months in hopes of not getting drawn into titles like XCOM by association. And look, I get that this isn't the most accessible style of games, and I also respect people who look at this footage and say, fuck that. But I do regard Other Side as a game that could be used as a selling point for this genre, especially to people who haven't delved into these niche titles as of this point in their life cycle. I don't want to say that it's a bad representation of strategy games, as it is still very true to that particular gameplay loop, but it certainly isn't as bland as a game like XCOM would be as an entry point. I mean, visually it's stunning despite not having the most detailed models and environments. There's just something so powerful about the look of grayscale and red as a palette choice that is fucking pleasant to look at. The OST is also incredible, assuming YouTube didn't fucking copy strike me. I've been using the theme for the first boss as the background music. I don't really know how to close this segment because it's been the least cohesive fucking mess in the world, but yeah, Other Side's pretty fucking good. Another release that was delayed from spring, I was so goddamn hyped to go see Dawn of the Deep Soul in theaters back in April, but as you may have guessed, that didn't really happen. Luckily, Sentai Filmworks, in all of their wisdom, decided to do online screenings for the film, and man, as if my emotions weren't already enough of a mess from Snafu's final season, Made in Abyss had to come in and just completely destroy me. Now, Dawn of the Deep Soul continues where the original series left off, both literally and metaphorically, making it a rather tricky anime to recommend to masses due to some cultural differences that would most likely leave a sour taste for certain demographics, but I don't care if people find certain scenes to be a bit too violent or risque. Riku, Reg, and Nanachi's descent into the fifth layer of the Abyss, the aptly named Sea of Corpses, has convinced me that I was correct in believing two theories that I've had since I first read this arc in its manga format. The first one, Bondrewd is possibly one of the most interesting antagonists in anime, full stop. For reasons I wouldn't dare to spoil, I can't even bring myself to think of him as an out-and-out villain, but rather just a scoundrel with an off-kilter moral compass. The second theory, while it may be a bit contentious to some, is simply at this point, Made in Abyss will probably end up being among the best anime adaptations of the current era we're in, even if it's not amongst the most popular. There's just so few flaws in the series, and believe me, it's not like I haven't tried to find as many as I can in an attempt to provide myself with counterpoints. Yet, as hard as I look, Dawn of the Deep Soul continues to give me reasons to suggest this series anytime someone asks me for a suggestion. I am in genuine disbelief that it actually took me more than a month to try and edit this fucking video. But the more I get into making videos again, the more annoyed I get with some of the voiceover takes I do, and honestly, the past 3 weeks specifically have been spent trying to mess with those audio files to try and make it better, which hasn't really worked out as well as I thought it would, but at this point it is what it is. The Q4 video will most likely be just as jarring and grating to people who have good headphones and whatnot, because I want the quarterly 2020 videos to be of consistent quality, especially if they're going to be this late anyways. Rest assured I do have some solutions in mind for the videos after this next one, and also after listening to myself over and over while I was editing this, I decided I'm just going to try writing scripts even if I suck at reading them. At least it will be more cohesive than whatever the fuck that Other Side bit was. Aside from that little update, stay safe, have a lovely day, all that fun shit. Yeah.